Welcome to the Weight Solutions for Physicians podcast, the podcast that helps you find solutions for your weight concerns that will last a lifetime. You've got this. Welcome to episode 209 of the Weight Solutions for Physicians podcast. I'm your host, Siobhan Key. Thank you so much for joining me today. All right, I have a good topic for you today. I'm talking to you about how to guarantee your own results. You know how when you start to want to lose weight, there's that immediate thought of, what if I can't do it? Or what if it doesn't work? I'm going to give you tools today to guarantee your own results, so you don't have to worry about that anymore. Because the reality is, it always is you in control of your own results. Always. No matter how you're losing weight. So what today's episode is about is, how do you take back that control so you own that power and you use it to really leverage yourself to where you want to go, instead of feeling like you're sitting and waiting and hoping that the things you most want in the world will happen to appear. Okay, it's going to be a good one. Now, I also have a really exciting announcement. I am offering free barrier busting coaching sessions for the entire month of November. So these are free group coaching calls where you come, you bring whatever is between you and your weight loss goals, wherever you're getting hung up, stuck, wherever you keep tripping, whatever you think is your biggest issues, you bring it to these coaching sessions and I will be there to help. Now, there's a couple things, because these are free group coaching sessions. They are not recorded, and that's for confidentiality reasons. So you need to come in order to participate, but you can come to as many as you want. That means for the entire month of November, you can get coaching every single week from me, in depth, direct on your issues. This is an amazing opportunity. So make sure you come check it out. It's weightsolutionsforphysicians.ca/free coaching. Go to that link, sign up, and then you'll get an email with when the next coaching session is. And you'll get emails through the month when the next ones are planned. And you can just add them to your calendar and make a plan to show up for as many as you want. You can come, ask questions in the chat, raise your hand and ask to talk to me directly, whatever feels right to you. It's going to be a lot of fun. Okay, so that's weightsolutionsforphysicians.ca/free coaching. We'll see you there. Make sure even pause this episode to get your name on that list, because when this episode comes out, the first coaching session will be later this week. So you want to make sure you get your name on that list now, so you don't miss out on one of these coaching sessions. You want to be able to do them all, right? Because that's your best benefit. That's the best bang for your buck of being a good podcast listener, is you get all the free stuff. Okay. Head over there, get your name on the list, and then come back to this episode. Okay, I wanted to start with this concept that I often dream of think of, like, how often do you dream of an assistant or somebody that can answer all of your needs? When you're like, this is what I need done, and this is how I need it done. And to have somebody who works for you who's able to be like, yeah, okay, no problem, I'll get it done. I'll make sure that happens. And that you can then trust and know that it's going to happen. Like, picture that. Is that like almost all of our dreams? I dream about this in multiple areas of my life. And my assistant that I have that works with me right now really is like this, which is why I love her so much, because I've been through a lot of different assistants over the years. But I dream of having somebody like this in for around the house, where I'm like, okay, I'm going to work, and could you make sure this and this and this and this happens? And like, it would just be so lovely. Anyways, I want you to think about this concept with regards to your weight. And when you think about all your dreams and like, okay, can we just make sure that the food we're eating actually tastes good? Like, can we just figure out what we're going to eat to lose weight that we actually like? And to have that assistant be like, yeah, no problem, I'll get that done. Right? Like, imagine how amazing that would be. Imagine how much easier that weight loss would feel. So stay with me, because I know you're like, yeah, but I don't have this assistant, Siobhan. Neither do I, except like I said, with the podcast and my coaching stuff, I do, which is lovely. But think about being this assistant for yourself. So often when we say stuff to ourselves about weight loss, okay, I want to do this and I really wish I could, lose weight and not feel like I was always on a diet, or not have to always be writing everything down or counting macros or whatever it is that you don't like to do. And the way our brains act is kind of like the assistant you don't want to have, where they show us, they're like, well, that's not going to work. Sorry, I can't do that. Right? Like if you had an assistant working for you where you're like, hey, could you make sure you get this done while I'm at work? And they're like, yeah, no, sorry, I'm not going to be able to do that. You'd be like, what? But this is how our brains behave. They show us how things aren't going to work. You can retrain it to being the type of assistant you want. So I want you to think about, and this ties into today's topic of guaranteeing your own results. I want you to think of, like, when you say to yourself, this is how I want it to be, don't let yourself say, sorry, that's not going to work. We can't do that. Be like, all right, not totally sure how we're going to do that, but I'm going to figure it out. If this is what's important to us and this is what really matters to you, promise yourself you'll figure it out. Have your own back. Be that amazing assistant that smooths your way. And yes, it might take a little bit of work on the front end. It might take a bit of problem solving. It might take some trial and error. But be willing to be there and be like, yeah, I'll do that. If this is important to me, if this is how I want my own weight loss to go, I can do it and I can figure it out. It's amazing when you take that approach. And now it may feel really uncomfortable at first because we have been taught that we don't have control over our own weight loss, that we're not the ones that know how it should go, that we keep waiting for the right person to tell us from the outside of our lives how we should do it so it magically works inside our lives. That's not coming, guys. It doesn't work. It's always been you. It always comes back to you. And you always have the power to design this however you want it to go. If there's stuff you hate doing, don't do it. Ask yourself, how would I accomplish the same goal without doing the stuff I don't like to do? If there's food you don't like to eat, stop eating it. If there's food that you miss eating, ask yourself, how can I still enjoy this food while still honoring my goals? What would that look like? These questions aren't always easy. It's not that you'll always come up with a really quick answer, but it's so worthwhile to ask yourself these questions and to give yourself space to contemplate that maybe there are answers, even if you don't have them right away. That maybe the more you ask these questions and you open up your mind to the possibility that it could look however you want it to look, that the answers will come. You'll start to see more and more answers as you go. I know this has been true for myself. The more I've kind of met myself and agreed, you know what, we're not going to eat crappy food anymore. We're not going to try to just stick to food that bores us and disappoints us in order to lose weight, the more successful I've been able to be in my weight loss. And the more I've enjoyed it, so that it's no big deal. I love the food I eat. I'm never deprived. I'm never restricted. I never have to even worry about eventually being deprived or restricted. And that lets me relax around food so much more. Okay, so think, as I'm talking about guaranteeing your own results, think about coming to it from that place of, I am my best assistant. No matter what I decide is in my best interests, I will say, absolutely, I'll make sure we get it done. I will figure that out. I will commit that that is the path we're going to focus on as we move forward. Okay, let's talk more about guaranteeing your results. So the first thing that we ask when we start a weight loss plan, or if you're contemplating joining me in my coaching program in Thrive Academy, you might be asking, will it work? Can I do it? What if it doesn't work? right? We ask all of these questions. And what I want to pose to you is that these are the wrong questions. Because these questions at the core of them, at the base of them, pass that power over to some external source. It's disempowering you in your own goals and your own weight loss. And as much as possible, we want to focus on empowering you. We want to focus on holding your power within you, owning more of your own power in your decision making and in your customizing and designing how you approach weight loss more and more and more than maybe you've ever thought is possible. So asking yourself, will it work, is not a great question. I think a better question is, am I willing to do what it takes to make sure it works? Am I willing to problem solve to make sure it works? Am I willing to keep going even when the path gets a bit tougher? Those are the better questions to ask. And here's a follow-up question is if you're like, yeah, I think I am, then ask yourself why. Why is it important to me to do this? Why am I willing to keep going even if I don't know the exact how? And I don't know for sure that I'm going to hit that goal exactly when I wanted to hit it. Why is it worthwhile for me to keep going? Why does it matter to me? Come up with the why behind it so that you can remind yourself of it as you go down this path. So when you hit a rough patch and you need a little bit of motivation, you can remind yourself, why are you doing this? Why are you focusing on figuring it out when it would be so much easier to just quit? Why is keeping going and keeping moving forward towards your goals more important and better for you long term than giving up and going back to old habits? Those are really, really important questions. So am I willing to do what it takes to make sure it works? Am I willing to guarantee this to myself? Now that might feel scary, right? If you're used to thinking, I hope it works. I don't know if it's going to work. I hope I can do this. I'll try to do this. All of these thoughts that have a fair bit of ambivalence built in. Saying, am I willing to guarantee that I am going to do this? May feel really scary, and that's okay. It's just a totally different approach to thinking about your weight than how we've been taught to think about it. It's a different approach to thinking about your goals than how we've been taught to think about them. But you are always the one in control of your results. You are always the one that ultimately decides if you make it or not. Now, I think it's really important when we're talking about this that we're not using this against yourself, right? If you've listened to the podcast, you know that this is really important because you could be like, well, I'm the one in control of my results, so look what crappy results I gave myself, right? And that's going to feel horrible. You'll feel guilty, you'll feel ashamed, you'll feel like a failure, and guess what will happen? You will go backwards. You'll go back to old habits. You'll get stuck in, eating patterns that end up with you regaining weight and finding it hard to get back to the way you're working or the goals you're wanting to work on. Instead, what we're talking about is, am I willing to guarantee my results to myself in a way that feels good to me? And it's not that, especially when we're talking about weight, right? We have control over how we eat, what type of physical activity we do. We have control over that, but there's elements within weight loss that we don't have control over. Our bodies are complex. Our brains are complex on how they control appetite and cravings and all that sort of stuff. So we can modify our inputs, which is what we're eating, how much we're eating, things like that. But there is an element where we have to let our body decide what it wants to do with that. So you can't always guarantee I will lose exactly this amount by this time. But what you can guarantee is I'm going to aim for that, and if it's not quite working, I'm going to keep problem solving and keep moving towards that no matter what happens. That, when I'm talking about guaranteeing your results, that's what I'm talking about. I see a lot of people where you're like, I don't think I'm going to hit the goal in the right time frame, so therefore it's not going to work, so I'll just stop. The biggest mistake you can make when you're working on a goal, when you want to reach a certain result in your life, is to quit. The biggest mistake is to make bumps in the road mean that you're not going to be able to reach it. Not at all. Every single path on the way to a big goal has bumps in the road, has times where maybe you feel like you turn around fully backwards and retrace a bunch of steps before you catch yourself. That's normal. It's nothing going wrong. It doesn't mean you need to quit. It doesn't mean you won't make it. It means you need to just problem solve. Oh, I noticed I'm going backwards again. What the heck's going on? How do I move forward? How do I get myself turned around? That's the piece you want to guarantee for yourself. You don't guarantee yourself that you're never going to make a mistake. That's not realistic. You don't guarantee that you're never going to end up headed back and duplicating steps back the way you came. That might not be realistic, but you guarantee that no matter what happens, you'll keep figuring it out. No matter what happens, you will speak nicely to yourself. You will believe in yourself. You will believe that you can reach these goals even when you're imperfect. Okay? That's what when you guarantee your results, that's what you're guaranteeing. That you will keep showing up, that you keep looking for the help and the resources you need in order to be able to do this in the way that you want. That's what you're guaranteeing to yourself. Okay, and so there's a difference between waiting for results and creating results. We often wait for results. We start doing some actions and we expect certain results. Or it can even be that we start taking actions and we feel entitled to certain results, right? Especially around the scale. You're like, well, look at everything I said no to this week in my eating, and the scale should have moved this amount. And if it didn't, it can be really frustrating. I don't think that way of thinking of like waiting for results or expecting the results is helpful. Long term, I don't think it gets you there. I think it's a burnout path, plus it's a path that creates a lot of inconsistency. Instead, I want you to think about you're creating results. You can guarantee the results to yourself because you're going to go out there and create them. Even if they've never existed for you before, you're going to go and create them. And that's really powerful. And so, when you do make a mistake or when you do overeat after a long, busy day of seeing patients and you feel really frustrated, it's not that this is getting in the way of your results. It's that you then create a solution around that. You create the path forward to continue focusing on your results, on the goal that you're wanting to create. It's a much more empowered way of thinking. Instead of waiting for it to happen to you, you're going out there and you're creating it. It's a much more active, less passive way of approaching your weight loss and approaching going for your results. So how do you do it? Well, I've got a 5-step plan for you. Isn't that nice? So first of all, what you want to do is start with what you want. What is it that you want? Now, I would question the default things you come up with. I think a lot of us have carried a certain weight number around in our head for a really long time. And it's like, well, I want to weigh this much. I want to lose this much weight. And that may be true and it may be what you really want, but I would just take the moment to question, where did this come from? And is it still what I want? Because maybe it came from like, this is what I weighed when I was in high school. And maybe it isn't actually what you want. Maybe you just want to feel better in your clothes and feel better when you're moving your body and feel like your metabolic parameters are healthier. There may be a lot of things that you think that number means. And I think it's worthwhile questioning it because we get very scale focused in our society, but the scale number really doesn't reflect a lot other than just gravitational pull on Earth. There's correlations as scale number goes down, usually your body size changes, but that's not always the case, right? Your body can change and the scale might not move, especially if you're doing some strength training or that sort of stuff. You may make changes and have improvement in health and the scale number doesn't move a lot. So really getting down to the nitty gritty and asking yourself, is it truly the scale number that matters to me? Or is the scale number proxy for something else that actually matters? And do I want to focus on the scale number primarily, or do I want to focus on the other thing? And there's no right or wrong, but just giving yourself the opportunity to have this conversation with yourself. Number 2, what are your non-negotiables for that result? Now, I love this question, and it's going to be something you've probably never asked yourself. So if you're like, okay, I'll use a scale number just because it's easy as an example. Say, I want to lose 30 pounds. Now, there's lots of ways you could lose 30 pounds. You could go on a juice fast for the next 6 months and you'll lose 30 pounds. But are you going to like it? And is it going to be sustainable? So instead of just being like, I'm going to do whatever it takes to lose the 30 pounds, I don't think that's effective. Because yes, you may lose it, but what we're really more interested in is how can you lose it in a way where you keep it off, right? This is not about like just lose it for the sake of losing it. It's like lose it in a way that you can keep going so you don't have to worry about your weight anymore. That's what we're talking about. So think of your non-negotiables. Be like, okay, if I'm going to live this way for the rest of my life, what is really important to me? What am I willing to do? What am I like not willing to do? So maybe your non-negotiables is, yeah, I want to lose this weight, but I am never eating chicken breast because I don't like dry chicken breast. So that's totally fine. Versus, what you might come to it is like, okay, well, let's eat some chicken breast on salads because that's really good diet food. But then you don't like it. And then you don't do it long term, and then it's not sustainable. So ask yourself, what are your non-negotiables? I want to lose this 30 pounds, but I don't have time to exercise every day. Okay, then we work around it. I want to lose this 30 pounds, but I don't want to be sitting and entering my food into an app on my phone. All right, then that's fine. Then we work around it, right? You're back into that mindset of that assistant that I was talking about at the beginning of like, all right, no problem. We'll figure it out. But give yourself a chance to say, what are my non-negotiables? What do I just not want to do when I'm losing weight? I don't want to feel like I'm on a diet. Okay, so what would it look like then? There's an infinite number of ways that you can approach your weight loss. And so absolutely all of these things where you're like, I really don't like this piece about losing weight, then get rid of it. There will be a way around it. There will be a way that you can still reach those goals while incorporating that non-negotiable. Sometimes the non-negotiables may change as you go, but let's start with what you think is realistic for you. What do you hate doing? Don't do it. What do you like to do that's helpful with weight loss? Do more of that. Find the balance in between. Again, sometimes when you're new at this approach, it may feel like a bit overwhelming where you're like, but what am I supposed to do? What should I eat? I just want to be told what to eat. But that doesn't work, right? We've all had lots of opportunities in our life where we've been told, oh, just eat this and you'll be fine. And it works for a certain length of time. And then at some point we start to resent it. We start to rebel against it and we stop doing it. What I'm talking about is you are guaranteeing your own results. You are doing what it takes to reach your goals in a way that respects you, that you can keep doing for the rest of your life. So your weight and your eating is off your to-do list. And yes, it may take some investment in thinking up front, but I promise you it's going to be so, so worth it. Okay, number 3. What do you need to do to create that result with those non-negotiables? So you know where you want to go. You know how you are not going to do it. I want to get there, but I'm definitely not going to do this or this. So then how are you going to do it? This may take some brainstorming. It might be sitting down with pen and paper. What are all the things I could do? And then marking the ones, yeah, I'd be okay with that. I'd be okay with that. Remember, you do not have to do anything you hate doing in order to lose weight. Respect yourself. That it's okay to not want to do all the stuff we were taught to do to lose weight. It's okay to cherry pick the things that you think are most helpful for you. So brainstorm it all out. How could I possibly do this? And then mark off the things, okay, if I'm willing to do this, do I think it'll be effective? And find the things that you think will be most helpful for you and start there. Number 4, what do you need to believe or say to yourself to take those actions? So you brainstormed a bunch of things you need to do. This is your to-do list to start moving towards that goal. Now, what do you need to believe and how do you need to think to support yourself in actually doing those? How we think, how we believe is the biggest piece of weight loss, because you could have that list and be like, it's not going to work as your core belief. And guess what? It's not going to work because you're probably not going to do them. And if you do them thinking it's not going to work, you're going to be looking for evidence that it's not working. And at the first sign you get that evidence, then you'll just stop. That's how our brains work. So you need to come up with a set of beliefs and a set of kind of statements or mantras that you use for yourself that help keep your head in the game. So what are they going to be? What would help support you taking these actions? And number 5 is when you stumble, because everybody will, it's not failure, it's part of the process of reaching a long-term weight loss goal and then maintaining it, because it happens even after you've reached your goal. When you stumble, how are you going to talk to yourself? How are you going to approach it? What are you going to do? How, if you are guaranteeing your results that you're going to figure it out, how do you show up in those moments where you feel like you've made a mistake? That's going to be really, really important. How do you remind yourself to show up that way? Thinking about these ahead of time instead of just hoping you don't make mistakes or hoping you don't stumble is really important. Because when you've actually stumbled, when you've actually eaten stuff you didn't plan on and feeling like maybe you've blown it, your mind's in a hole there. You're not going to be able to generate better thoughts at that moment. You need to have kind of contemplated it and primed your brain for it before you get there. So do it in advance. When you stumble, because that's going to happen, how are you going to talk to yourself? Okay, summary of those. Number 1, decide where you want to go. Question, is it actually that what I want, or is that a surrogate for something else? Really get kind of down to the nitty-gritty. What is it that I truly want? Number 2, what are your non-negotiables for getting there? What are the things that you're like, I don't want to do that anymore? Fantastic, don't do it. Because then number 3, what we do is we combine, where do you want to go? How are you definitely not getting there? So what are your non-negotiables that you're just not going to do? And then brainstorm other solutions. There's always more solutions. You never have to worry about not having options if you say no to some stuff. Number 4, what do you need to believe or say to yourself in order to get yourself to take those actions on a regular basis, to take them consistently? And number 5, when you stumble, how are you going to speak to yourself? How are you going to get your mind back in the game and get redirected, focused back on that result that you're wanting to create? All right, I hope that you guys really enjoyed this episode. This stuff is powerful. And like I said at one point, I know it may boggle your mind a little bit where you're like, oh, come on, like, just tell me what to eat. Or you may doubt it where you're like, if I'm not being told what to eat, if I have all this agency on how I approach it, how could I possibly be successful? But trust me, it works. This works and it makes your life better. And because it makes your life better, it's going to be way more sustainable for you. Okay? Now make sure you've signed up for those free barrier busting coaching sessions. Head over to weightsolutionsforphysicians.ca/free coaching to get your name on the list so you're getting reminder emails. Like I said, they are scheduled throughout the month of November. Come to one, come to all, whatever works for you. I'm going to be there helping you figure out your biggest frustrations. So if this episode like boggled your mind and you're like, I need some more help on it, fantastic. Come to a coaching session and tell me you want help with this. I will happily help you. All right, have a fantastic day, guys. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.